song number 740. 740. A song for the nation, song number 740. May there be a shining light to the nations, a shining light to the peoples of the earth, till the whole world sees the glory of your name. May your pure light shine through us. May we bring a word of hope to the nations, a word of life to the peoples of the earth, till the whole world sees their salvation through your name. May your mercy flow through us. May we sing a song of joy to the nations, a song of praise to the peoples of the earth, till the whole world rings with the praises of your name. May your song be sung through us.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Imagine with me for a little bit that you and your family lived in Ukraine. Everything is nice, everything is normal, it's peaceful. Everything you know is just, it's great. But then, due to circumstances outside of your control, everything changes. Everything you once knew as safe and secure is now destroyed. And what do you do? Where do you go? So you leave, you flee. You see your best chances for the future of your family outside of Ukraine. And so you leave, you go into the surrounding European countries, but you're not the only family to be doing that. Europe's been taking on refugees for years. And so there's not really a place for your family to thrive, to grow. What do? Then you hear that there is an opportunity that you can actually go to America, and that American family or someone from America would sponsor you. They'll take your family in and they'll help your family go from Europe, your kind of broken situation there, to America and start over again. It's kind of hard for us to wrap our minds around how that would actually be, because it's just doesn't really make sense in our own minds. But that's reality for far too many Ukrainian families who once lived in a normal, peaceful home just like you guys do. They loved their homes. They didn't want to go anywhere. Because of war and because of unrest, that changed, and now they have to go and find home somewhere else in a strange country with a strange language and a strange culture. So tonight, the goal for this evening is for you guys to find out a little bit more how you can help, how you can do something for maybe one of these families, and how you can make a difference in their lives. So for the order of the evening tonight, I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint on just information, how you can potentially help out, and just some different tips along the way. Following that, Wendell Martin from Faith is going to come up and share on his experience, or the Faith Church's experience in sponsoring a Ukrainian family, just to kind of give you an idea of how it could possibly go for your church. Then the husband of the Ukrainian family that Myerstown sponsored, we call him Val, he's going to come and tell his side of the story, how his family came to America from Europe. And then finally, my dad, Leon, he's going to come and give his perspective from being in the ministry, how it was actually a blessing to our church to sponsor a Ukrainian family. And then, in the end, we're going to open up for questions if you guys have any questions, and try to answer anything that you might have to say. I'm going to make this PowerPoint available to you guys. I don't feel like you have to be scribbling down notes. I'll tell you how I'm going to share it later with you guys, but yeah. So what is a sponsor? You've probably been hearing that word a lot, sponsor your Ukrainian family. What does that really mean? A typical sponsor that we often think of, it's providing funds to someone in need, maybe sending it through CAM or something like that, but there's little to no interaction with the recipient. It's kind of just sending money and then someone else takes it from there and gives the funds, gives whatever it is. But with sponsoring a Ukrainian family, providing funds, yes, that's a large part. That's one of the main parts. But there's a lot more interaction with the family itself. You're going to be, first of all, helping them travel from Europe, wherever they're at in Europe at the time, to America. That's a big part. And then you're going to assist them with setting lives up in a new country. What we think of as so normal is foreign to them, our language, our culture, everything about it. So you'll be walking alongside of them the whole process, helping them understand what it's like to live a normal life in America. That's going to include helping them find the job, helping the kids get into school, finding an appropriate house for them to live in, showing them how to shop in our grocery stores, setting up their phones, finding them a vehicle, you name it. There's a lot that's involved, and that's kind of what you're signing up to as a sponsor. But most importantly, you're going to be their friends, be their family, because here in America, their friends didn't come with them, their families didn't come with them, so that's your part, and that's where you step in. So there's a lot that it seems like a lot, but it's a really important part of this is having a good group to work with. And so we're going to talk a little bit about organizing your group, how that all might look. It's going to become overwhelming very quickly without a committed group. For one person to do this is going to be stressful, overwhelming. It's not going to be a fun process at all. There's obviously a lot of prep work that has to happen. You have to find a house for them to live. You have to see if there's any potential jobs that they can have. You're going to have to, you name it, a lot of things that have to go on behind the scenes. And also, when the family arrives, they'll be pretty dependent on you right at first. Again, their friends, their family, they're not here. What they know is you. And there's just some things that is kind of a lot for one person or two people, but a core group is very important. So what should your group look like? At the beginning of 2022, my church, Myerstown, and I, we started working with Samaritan's Purse to, at that point, get an Afghan family. And we were kind of late to the game on that. There were not many families to house anymore, so we switched to getting a Ukrainian family through Samaritan's Purse, and that dried up as well. And at the end of the summer, we kind of changed gears, and we went a different direction. So nothing ever materialized with Samaritan's Purse, but what they did help us do is help us get organized, and that was something I'm very thankful for their input. And they showed us what it looks like for a church to sponsor a family, and so I'm going to share with you guys what they taught us and how that was actually very helpful for us. So they recommended that 5 individuals or 5 couples is a great size. In the case for us at Myerstown here, it was 4 couples and 2 ladies that was on our group for sponsoring a family. Each person takes part they each take a part of the leader. The uniting is going to entail. You have to take charge of communicating with the family before they're here in America. When you're trying to get information from them, to know them, someone's going to have to do. And also for money is. So things that a have to take charge of. So breaking down a little bit more what I said by having 5 people in charge of 5 different parts of the family. So the first life that someone took is someone's gonna have to find a family. Great way to get the church here at Myerstown, the bite-sized pieces. It's very digit, and we're just doing all the paperwork. And also, it's a good idea to. It's very helpful. With them. I'd be saying, what about going through an organization that seems more legit? And with filling out the So if you do find an organization, go through an organization. Close connection does not 40 to 50 come from Ukraine. He now has connections that he deals with are with, say, he bought a family came over, and that family says, hey, I have a brother. That brother wants to come over. I can vouch for him. He's legit. And that's kind of how he does. So it's maybe less sketchy, if I can say. I thought the Facebook thing threw me off at first as well, but now that he can, he's kind of dealing with people like their siblings and their parents and stuff. So it's more like he deals with family referrals. Once he has a family, he will create a profile for that family, and he'll put it on a Google Docs folder that Rodney has created with a bunch of different helpful information for churches like you guys and ourselves that have sponsored Ukrainian families. And also tonight, I'm going to create a WhatsApp group for everyone here that wants to sponsor your Ukrainian family. In the back, there's a paper for your name and your phone number, and if you're feeling techie, you can scan a QR code and join this WhatsApp group, where we can kind of create a network of churches in the area that are sponsoring Ukrainian families and bounce questions off of each other. And on that chat, I will share this Google Docs folder that I'm referring to. So once you open Rodney's Google Documents folder, this is what's going to come up. You see there's a whole bunch of documents that he has compiled with helpful information for churches like you who are trying to sponsor a Ukrainian family. So you have to browse that at your own time there, but there's a whole bunch of different things that are helpful. If you click that little folder at the top, that's going to take you to all his family profiles that I was talking about. Right now, I think there's 10 families on his Google Docs drive, the profiles that want to get sponsored. I believe 3 of them, the bottom 3 are actually already taken. So you have 7 to choose from. As of now, there's always more that he's going to be adding to this Google Documents folder. So just highlighting a couple, this is what those family profiles look like. This family here is a father, mom and dad and 1 kid. They currently live in Poland, and they're looking for a sponsor. This family here is a family with 6 children. They're currently living in Germany, and they're from Mariupol. And if you're following Ukraine, you know that's not a great place to be from. That was a lot of bad things happened there. But they're currently in Germany and looking for a sponsor. This last family here is currently in Italy. It's a family of mom and dad and 4 children. And Italy is not a great place to be if you're an immigrant. They don't really take to that very kindly. And so Rodney asked me to put a special plug-in for this family. They're not in a great spot with currently being in Italy, but again, they're looking for a sponsor, and as well as more families on his Google Docs drive that you can find there. So those are some. This is just to give you an example of what these profiles are. Take a look at them. If you want to move forward with the family, Rodney's contact is on the bottom there. You contact Rodney or myself, and we'll get the ball rolling with communicating with that family and, yeah, moving on to the next steps with them. So you want to start communicating with your family. Rodney will create a Facebook Messenger group. That's what we did in our situation. Maybe he'll change it for you guys, but creating a group where Rodney is involved, the family obviously, an interpreter that Rodney has connections with, and then you or your church group. So that's where it starts. A Facebook Messenger group where you're going to introduce your church, say, we're Myerstown Mennonite Church, we live in Pennsylvania, we're in Pennsylvania, we want to sponsor your family, we can provide a house for you, a job, you name it. Put it out there and just initiate conversation with the family. Tell them about yourselves. And you're going to work towards setting up a video call. Here's a picture of the video call that my wife and I were on with our current Ukrainian family with an interpreter that Rodney set up for us. The whole purpose of a video call is to create trust. So there's a lot of trust that has to happen here. First of all, you want the trust of your Ukrainian family, obviously. You're going to buy tickets for them to come to America, but they also have to trust you. The next step is that they send pictures of their passports to you. And that's a step of trust. And so you can do so much with just like messaging back and forth, but seeing them face to face, having a conversation with them can kind of build trust on both sides and kind of put both your parties at ease. And so that's what the video call is. And in that video call, you're going to say, hey, do you guys want to move forward? Yes. All right, I need your passports. They'll email you your passports, and that's what gets the ball rolling. The next step is filling out the I-134A form, and we'll talk about that very soon here. So, uniting for Ukraine. Maybe you've heard that. It's been something that's been said a lot recently. It's probably why you're here tonight. But what is Uniting for Ukraine? It's a government program under USCIS, which stands for United States Citizen and Immigration Services. And what it is, when a family enters this, they can come to America for a temporary 2-year parole. It's not a permanent residency. It's a temporary 2-year parole. And after they're here for 1 year, you can then file for permanent residency. So that's kind of a brief rundown of what that looks like. The main part of the program is this form I-134A that I referred to. And the main point of this form that you'll be filling out is for proof of financial support. That's the main idea of what they're looking for in this form. First of all, proof that the Ukrainian will be supported. They want to make sure that these families are coming to America, they're going to be supported. But they also want to make sure that the supporter can financially sustain the Ukrainian. So they want to make sure this isn't just like a burden to the Americans. They want to make sure that you're able to financially support the Ukrainian. Uniting for Ukraine does not match supporters with Ukrainians. We already talked about how you go about finding your family. That's not what this Uniting for Ukraine program does. You have to, first of all, have your connection with your family. Then you move on to Uniting for Ukraine and filling out the forms. Once the form I-134A is approved, the Ukrainian is given approval to travel. And again, that moves you on to your next step. So let's talk a little bit more about form I-134A. This is probably maybe one of the, it probably feels like a lot, but it's not super complicated. And I'll try to walk you through some tips as you go through it. So like I mentioned earlier, a leader is going to kind of spearhead this. He's going to have to create a USCIS account, which go online, create an account. A separate form must be filled out for each individual family member. So in our case at Myerstown, we had a family of 5, 2 parents obviously, and 3 children. So I filled out 5 forms. So it doesn't matter if they're a minor, if they're a baby, 1 form for each Ukrainian. But try to use one email address for the whole family. So use one email address, same email address for each of the forms. That way it all goes to the same person. And having a proper email address is very important because once you fill out the forms, USCIS is going to send the family a notification. It has to go to the proper email address, obviously. The forms are free. There's no cost, so that's a positive. So here's what I was saying, how an individual person has to spearhead this process. You can't put in Myerstown Mennonite Church is the sponsor of this family. It has to be Shane Sensnig is the sponsor of this family. They don't want, I'm not sure what the purpose is, but an organization cannot put their name in as a sponsor for your family. But you can attach supporting documents proving that you are financially backed by your church. So in my case, my deacon Ray, he typed up a document saying that Myerstown Mennonite Church is financially backing Shane Sensnig in this form, and I attached that to each one of the forms that I filed, and that's what they're looking for. It was sufficient. The individual so say you're the leader, you don't actually have to attach your personal financial information if you don't want to. Apparently it's optional. As I was doing my research for this, they changed that, I think. I added all my stuff just in case, but you don't have to, I guess, as long as your church or your organization is sufficient with the funds. You are not legally bound to the beneficiary. That's a word you'll be hearing a lot, beneficiary. That's the Ukrainian. They're the beneficiary, you're the supporter. As I go through the forms, those are the terms they'll be using. So that's a question that people have had. Am I legally bound to the Ukrainian? If I sponsor them, they come to America and commit a crime, is that back on me? No, they're not legally bound either way. They're not to you, you're not to them. And so hopefully that puts you at ease in thinking about this. Give vague responses when possible. This is advice coming from Rodney. They're going to say, you are responsible for finding the Ukrainian a house. You are responsible for finding the Ukrainian, getting them into a school. Instead of saying, yes, we will get them a 2-story house in the country, just say, yes, we can provide them a house. That way you're not making promises that you can't keep if something changes. So as you fill out the form, give vague responses when possible. Advice from Rodney. And then after you fill out the forms, you'll get updates on your USCIS account as to where the forms are at. I'm not sure how it's at now, but it took 1 week from when we filed the forms to when our family had permission to fly. So it happens quickly, or it did happen quickly. I hope the same way for you guys. So that's something to keep in mind. And the whole Uniting for Ukraine process kind of just removes all the red tape from immigrants coming to America. I mean, it happens in a week in our case, and that's what I heard from other people as well. And so it's kind of streamlining the process for Ukrainians to come into America with a sponsor. So this is the USCIS website. This is where you'll start. This is actually a very helpful resource. It answers a bunch of frequently asked questions that they'll have on there. You can go in there, and it's very helpful. But you're going to select that, fill out Form I-134A. That's going to take you to this page. Select File Online. These forms have to be filed online. You can't do them in paper. Takes you to another page, and eventually takes you to the form. This is the page 1 of the Form I-134A. And yeah, there's different things. They ask questions about you. They ask questions about the beneficiary, which is a Ukrainian, just to kind of they ask a lot of information. And again, the main point of this form is to prove that you are financially able to sustain this Ukrainian family. That's the whole point of the form. And then in the additional information section, you're going to be able to attach proof that you're backed by your church. This is a picture of what I attached to my form, explained who we are as Myerstown, what we can offer the family, and just a brief overview of what we are, where we're at financially. And I attached that to each form. So once you do all that, once you file the forms, your family is going to be given approval to travel. That means fly to America. So the next step is purchasing plane tickets. And I would recommend using Golden Rule Travel. That's a great option. That's what we used, or another travel agency of that sort. That can help with any potential problems that obviously can arise when traveling. And they also have access to humanitarian tickets. I don't know if this is still current, but at one point it was, where the humanitarian tickets are not necessarily cheaper, but they're easy to change last minute for a cheaper price than if you would just get a normal ticket. So I hope that's still an option. I actually can't say for sure. But a travel agency would have access to that. Another fun one is vaccinations. Each of the family members must be up to date on their vaccines, like measles and polio, you name it. So they have to have documents of that, and it's recommended that they get those documents translated, like their immunization records and their birth certificate, translated in Ukraine, or in Europe, or not in Ukraine at the moment, but in Europe, because it's cheaper. And I have information on that, what that's going to look like. Obviously, COVID made this more complicated. You're going to be required to, they're going to ask you to get the COVID vaccine. All you have to do is check a box. They're never going to ask for it. So Rodney has a unique document on that Google Docs folder. You can look at that and take it for what it's worth. In our situation, our family did get the COVID shot, but their 3-year-old daughter could not, because Germany did not give vaccines to young children. And she came here just fine. So we'll let that as it is. Once you buy the ticket for the family, send them the information and make sure they're able to make it to the airport. Make sure they have funds to use the train and the bus, and maybe it's their first time traveling, so you can help them out with giving them some tips. This is the document that I gave with the family. It's for when they come to U.S. Customs. It says, "My name is Shane. Here's my phone number if you want to contact me. Here's their passport information. Here's what we're doing for them as a sponsor," just to kind of help out, put the customs at ease, and if they want to call you, they can. When they arrive, the next thing is go pick them up from the airport. Here's a picture of when we picked them up, we picked them up from the airport. It was fun. Help them get settled in, help them, obviously they're in a new country, everything is strange, you can imagine. Help them get settled in, show them things that they're going to need. Then there's a few things that you have to do right at first once they arrive. First of all, fill out that form I-765, and that's for employment. And you have to fill out a form for each family member because they all need Social Security cards. And so you fill out a form for each family member. This form is not free, I don't believe. I didn't actually fill it out, but I think there is a cost involved with this. But something actually changed recently on this. It used to be that you had to file your form I-1765 and wait for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, until you get work authorization back that the family can legally work. And so we got creative with how our family could work. The husband from our family could work without having legal papers. But now, once you file your form and you have proof that you filed your form, you can take that proof, your I-134A that you filed already, and your passport, and you can go get a job legally. So if they arrive on Tuesday, you file the form Wednesday, they can get a job basically right away. And so there's no waiting around to see if, until they get that work authorization back. So that's really helpful. You don't have to get as creative with all that. The family will have to get a tuberculosis test, not a skin test, has to be a blood test. And the county health department is a helpful resource for that. You also have to go to the USCIS office for a biometrics appointment where they'll get fingerprints and pictures taken. And I'm not sure what all happens there, but that's after you file the employment forms. Bethany Christian Services was a great resource for us. They're located in Lancaster, and they helped us with a lot of the different paperwork and Medicaid, food stamps, you name it. They were very helpful. I would definitely recommend using them. Like I said, they're located in Lancaster, and they just helped us walk through some different things. And then after a while, I have everything else there because we don't have time to talk about everything else you have to do, but there's obviously a lot you have to do. For instance, getting their phones set up. We had a lot of fun setting their phones up. We learned a lot, so ask us later. Again, showing them how to shop at our stores, just being an American, it's just walk alongside of them, make them feel welcomed. Obviously, there's a lot that they lost in moving from Ukraine, but the least we can do is make them feel welcomed here. Some other information that I want to add here real quick. Uniting for Ukraine is not just a free pass for Ukrainians to get to America. It's like they've been waiting all their lives just to go to America because that's where everyone wants to go. In our case, our family lived in Odessa, and they loved Odessa, and they were really sad to leave. And so that's something to keep in mind as you work with your families. Be their friends. Like I said, they didn't bring their friends along with them or their family. They're now separated, other side of the world from them. So be their friends. Allow them to make choices that are not forced upon them. If you think about the last couple months of their lives, they didn't choose to get their house destroyed. They didn't choose they didn't choose you as a sponsor. They didn't choose where they get to live. So allow them to make choices that are not forced upon them. You might want them to come to your church, but maybe that's not the best option for them. Our family is currently plugged into a Russian-speaking church, and we're happy for them, and they love it. So don't expect them, have these expectations that they have to do things. Let them choose. The goal is to work yourself out of a job, to make them self-sufficient. Probably some questions a question you guys had is, what can we expect financially? What's the cost going to look like? I'm not going to give you numbers because that can vary on the size of the family and different things, but the three main big cost numbers, things that are going to cost you something are, first of all, the tickets, a couple grand, again, depending on the size of your family. Housing, maybe you get someone from your church that can give you a house. Maybe you have to rent a house. That's going to be another big part of it. And also a vehicle. Again, if you can get a vehicle donated, that obviously cuts back on cost. But those are the three main things that are going to require cost. Some resources that I'm just going to give you guys. Again, I'm going to share this PowerPoint so you can see them later. This is Rodney Mast has a YouTube channel with a few videos on that explains this process more. I would recommend that. The USCIS website, that's very helpful. The Department of Homeland Security, also a very helpful website that gives information on the whole process. If you are wanting to find a family via Facebook groups, there's a link to a Facebook group. You can do as you wish there. Hello.us is also a helpful resource in just explaining things. There's the website to Bethany Christian Services. Then also that shared Google Docs folder that I will share on our WhatsApp group. Again, if you want to join that WhatsApp group, there's a paper in the back that you can join with that. So before I close, are there any questions before we move on to the next part of our service? If not, we'll open it up again for questions at the end of the service. But now we'll turn it over to Wendell. and he's going to share on his experiences.
Good evening. Thanks, Shane, for the invitation and for getting this together, and whoever else is involved here. Great opportunity we have to be able to reach people here. Just excited about this. Shane answered most of the questions of the nuts and bolts. How does it work, and what's the process look like? So I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story about how faith, what our experience was, and we had just an ideal experience. I mean, just everything went smooth as you could expect, and it just has really been a blessing to our church and to us as a family as well. So we did the same thing where we started trying to do something through an organization in Lancaster called Church World Services to get an Afghan family, and we were on the evangelism committee trying to figure this out. And as committees and churches work, it takes a while to get everything in. Now we have an idea, then we get approval of that, and we missed that opportunity. So when Rodney contacted Chris Martin, another person that's on the committee and has done a lot of the work in this process, said, here's an ideal family for your church. It's, we jumped on it and wanted to get right in. Everybody was behind it. And late August, they finally came. We worked through the process, filled out the paperwork, got connected back and forth. It is amazing how much of an advantage technology is in this whole process. He talked about having a translator there, and that's great when you have it. But a lot of our communication was text back and forth through email or WhatsApp or text, and just punch it into Google Translate, see what he's saying, like, that doesn't sound right, try again. but it gets you good enough that you can communicate. Anyway, they signed up, they accepted us as sponsors, and we got them plane tickets, I think it was about 3 weeks from when they were approved. And we were in the same shoes where it was rapid approval. We applied the paperwork, and I think it was a few days that we were approved as sponsors, and again, within a week that they were approved to travel. And they were in not an ideal situation. The family we got was Alexander and Olga was the couple, and they had 4 young children, so 6 of them, and they were in a situation where they were supposed to be moving out of where they were at, and they didn't have good options, so they were wanting to come as soon as possible. So a caution on that: make sure you have a house available. Doesn't necessarily have to be furnished and everything set up yet, but if you wait till they're approved and then go look for a house, right now it's hard to find houses and it could be a while. So just warning there. Got them over there, and think about their story that got them to here. It's just interesting. Alexander and Olga lived in a small town right close to the Russian border, and they heard the invasion was starting, and they left, and found out later that about 2 hours later is when their town was invaded. So they had they had that one day to get out, and a couple hours after they left, their town was taken over. They're right next, they work close to Russian, actually. Olga her first language would have been Russian, and still we often translate to Russian instead of Ukrainian there. So then they're in Germany, move from place to place. Then they get up, they're coming to America, everything's exciting. They get up early in the morning, time change, and they got a long day, and then I think it was an 8-hour delay that they sat on the runway in the plane for several hours, and then something. By the time they got here, we didn't actually. Chris Martin, another family on the committee, actually met them, but they were at the airport, and then they got delayed more and more, and they're sitting at the airport waiting for them. So they had a long day. Anyway, drive up to Lancaster. They're staying right in Lancaster, and got them situated. And imagine waking up the next day, like you don't know who anybody is. They don't have a phone at this point yet. They have a device, a phone that has internet. We got connected to a Wi-Fi that one of the neighbors had, and so they were able to use WhatsApp, but they had very limited options. And you can okay, now what do I do tomorrow morning, when I wake up? What am I going to do? It was just interesting helping them through those first days. Chris was really in touch with them back and forth. The different people from the church would pitch in and take them to their appointments, take them shopping. One of the things we had, which really worked out good, is the house they were staying at was just being remodeled and wrapping up and needed some concrete work done, and he was comfortable with doing concrete work. Alexander was. So we set him up as that was the first job he could do. He could work through that and be at home with his family, over these first weeks, but still contribute some. It's interesting. He has no idea where anything is, so and can't talk basically not a word of English. So I take him to Home Depot, and we're translating back and forth, showing that, back and forth with our phones. And so the way we were shopping, he kind of knew what he wanted, but had no idea what was available here. So he'd look up in Ukrainian what he needed, show me a picture of it, and then I'd go find it, yep, there, you need two of them, put them on the cart. And it was just it was a fun experience, kind of like, is this actually happening? But just got it all together. Eventually he got that job done, a few other odd jobs around there, and it was fun to help them through some of these processes. It was a blessing to our family. They had a 5-year-old, and we have a 7-year-old daughter, and so they were over in our yard sometimes. They're just down the street from where we're at, and so we were able to have them over sometimes. And our 7-year-old daughter learned how to use Google Translate and could get back and forth with them some as they were playing. But that was kind of interesting. And we had just a great, people in the church stepped up, furnished the house. We had a sign-up sheet like you did here, and got it all filled up right away. One of the things to think about when you have a sign-up sheet, some people bring the table in, put it together, and set it in the kitchen. The next person comes and gives you a pile of parts and assumes that somebody else is going to put it together and get the bed upstairs. Either have somebody that's in charge of doing that, or be clear on the sign-up sheet that it's supposed to end up where it goes, so that somebody doesn't end up last minute assembling all this furniture and putting it in place. Got him settled. He was a real ambitious person. He had done a lot of tile work, and we had seen the pictures of what he had done, and he right away was looking for a job, got it. And you talked about getting the work permit very quickly. I think we weren't under that new thing that you can get it right away, but it was still within a month, and he was right off to get a job and start working as soon as he could. So what we did as a church is said, we're going to rent the house for 3 months, furnish it, and that is all their furnishings. So the appliances were with the house, but all the beds, the table, the couches, the kitchen, utensils and pots and pans, all that is theirs to take along if they move somewhere else. And we gave 3 months of rent, 3 months of utilities, and hoping by then they would be established, but we didn't say, that's we're going to cut off. Then they got some discount, kind of partially rent paid as they went on. By 3 months, he was very much self-sufficient. We're at 5 months now and he was able to find a good job right away and really, really taken off. So we had a very ideal situation. And just as you think through it, why do you want to support a refugee family? It's a great opportunity. I definitely recommend it. We had a great experience. And the reason I throw that out there, what does success look like? If you get a chance to support a Ukrainian family or from any other country, where is it? What is a success? If they come to your church, if they become self-sufficient, what is success in your mind? And the reason I bring that up, right beside us in the Airbnb there, a family from an Afghan family moved in just for a week or so until their house was available. This is through Church World Services, not through our church, but moved in and were there just for a few days, and left. And then the next week, the sponsoring family showed up and was asking about, what do we know what the deal was next door here? Where are they? We haven't seen them for a couple days. Turns out they found some friends in Virginia and moved down there, and the sponsoring family never actually got to meet them, or maybe they picked them up at the airport, but never got to really connect with them, and didn't need the house after all. Things can go wrong. Like Shane was saying, they make their own decisions once they're here. They're not our children. They're not ours. We're helping them out. But as we went through it, it was a blessing to us as a family, being on the committee, and to our church. And I definitely recommend it. It's a great work to be a part of. Thanks.
I will be reading because I'm not so good to speak. I'll translate my text. Hello, I want to welcome everyone here. My name is Valery Romanovsky. Many people call me just Val because it's easier about here. And my family, we come here from Ukraine because in our country now war. You all know what Russia attacked Ukraine, and because of this, many people leave her homeland, relatives and friends, communities, us. We could believe what's happened, and when we come to terms with reality, we hope that the political world come to an agreements and involved and quickly. But all it didn't. It happens and only got worse, and they left Ukraine 2 months after the start of the war for Germany. There we, wife's sister, family had gone. Our family did not get to Germany on the first and try, but only on the third. God protected us and did not let him leave the country, and at a time when there was chaos and chaos at the boards, and there was a shortage and fuel and bad weather. On first time our car broke. Second time, our children sick, but sometimes later, when the day before Easter holiday, rockets begin to fly in our city again, in building, in church, and we deciding what we need to try again. And on the same day, my wife's sister husband called us, say what he would also want to go to his family, and he can be released aboard. So by my car, all the Navy, we go with God's help. We ended up in Germany. Having lived here, we live 3 or 4 months. We're realizing that we did not belong here, since there as to Christian church there, but only Catholic. One knowing that there are many of Christians churches and crushes in the USA. we begin to look for a way to go get to the USA. First, the family of my wife's sister moved to the USA, and then we found social network. My wife met Shane and Teresa, and with God's blessing and the help of your church, Crush, we end up here in your city. My family and I, we are very grateful to all the people in this Crush country who help us so much and do God for us. May God bless you and your Crush, and may reward your God deals. We very appreciate you for this. Maybe my story is short, but I don't know. Maybe who have some questions? Thank you.
Perspective how sponsoring a Ukrainian family can bless the church. You heard our story, but the opportunity to sponsor a family, as from my perspective, had the ability to unite the church and also bless those who are involved. But we were just so blessed with the opportunity. And different opportunities come up as we go through life. I'm well aware of that, but we were, as a congregation, we were blessed. As Shane was sharing, I think some of you might have been thinking, I'm reading your minds if I'm allowed, that's a big step. And I wrote down in my paper, a big step equals a large blessing. You're going to say, what if? And may I kindly say, don't say that. This is a time to trust, one step at a time. Questions come up, we don't have answers. I'm not sure what I'm doing tomorrow for sure. Maybe you don't either, but it's just a step of faith. And you take it and then go with it. It doesn't begin and end with just providing for the family. So you don't just, okay, I'm going to furnish their house and here you go. No, you can be as involved as you want to be. Val there, I think he'd admit, we're close friends. I live in Newmanstown, he lives here in Myerstown, and we interact from time to time, and we're great friends. We provided for the physical needs, but through this experience, we gained a friend. We gained a friend with their family. Some of us were together at their daughter's birthday party. They were at our house for Christmas dinner. I mean, this is great. This is great. Never had the opportunity before, and now we did. Some of us went to watch the little boys. Hopefully you'll see them after church. They were playing soccer over here in Newmanstown. We went to watch them play a game of soccer. And it was just great to interact with the family. His wife, is Vika here, Val? Oh, there she is. The women here had the opportunity to take her shopping, introduce her to new stores, new shops. And of course, guess what? We're Mennonites. Where do you find the good bargains and the good deals? The way you want. And to this day, they have their shop they go to down in Ephrata. I forget the name, but if you ask Val, he knows what it is. Val is a mechanic. And so they're sitting in her house talking. He'd like to purchase a vehicle. And women, if you know men, we all have our opinions. Guess what? So does Val. Model, make, and we sit there and shake our heads and laugh. But we laugh and have a good time. Did I say we agree? That's fine. We don't have to. But interacting with her family, it's such a blessing every time that we get together. And you might think, well, you can teach them. You're teaching them, correct. But guess what? We're learning too. We learn it from their culture. They were together Christmas, and in the afternoon, their family got up and sang us a song. That's the song they sing in Christmas. And over in Ukraine, the experiences were beautiful. We're teaching them, and we're learning it's a learning experience as well. What blessed our hearts was the response from the church after the sign-up sheet that was mentioned as well. Everybody helps out a little bit, and the job gets done. When you think about items that are needed. Women, you can relate items for the kitchen, for the laundry, the dining room, living room, bedrooms, bathroom. And if I'm not mistaken, the sheet was quite long, but most of it got taken care of in a short amount of time. The 4 couples and the singles that we talked about with different groups, with the housing, transportation, employment, education, the healthcare, the communication, so on. Everyone doing their part. Everything got completed in a short amount of time. And throughout the time, if you'd asked these team, the members, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. We're not doing much. Well, the truth of it is they were. Nobody really wanted to admit it. One young man's here took care of the phone thing. I think he spent close to 40 hours taking care of the phone. But guess what? They can communicate with their family and friends back home. So it all worked out. I want to thank God for the blessing us the way He has and allowing this opportunity to open up so we can sponsor a family. As was mentioned, we tried to sponsor through other organizations, and the doors were closed. Or as Wendell pointed out quite clearly, we were late, and maybe that's how more than that, but it's just nothing happening. We waited and waited, and nothing seemed to happen. Then with Rodney Mass, this opportunity presented itself, and all of a sudden, like they were saying, it happened like that. Approval and tickets with credit cards. You can buy tickets in a couple minutes and communicate back and forth with family. And they're on the plane from, they were in Odessa, Ukraine. They went to Mannheim, Germany, and then the airport, which I forget which, and into Newark. So we look back and we could ask, why the closed door? And I don't have answers, I don't know, but we're thankful that God opened the door and it just allowed us to help out in this way. And I just stand in awe at the way God has blessed the process. And you heard from the other men, everything went fast. And I'm just excited to share that God is good, God's in control, and God will help you if you decide to go through with this. The other thing, I'm just thankful for God that He is bringing these families to us. I'm not opposed to missions. We served for a while as well. But sometimes the need is to send families overseas. You send maybe somebody from your church is in another country right now. But here you have the opportunity, these families are coming to us. So we can stay in, if I can call the comforts of our home, and help them out at the same time. If you forget everything I said, there's 2 words: opportunity and blessing. And I can't say it enough. Wendell said it just before he sat down. It's such a blessing. As I was looking over what I'm going to share, I thought too of maybe our situation is just different because our family is so great. And Wendell says he thought the same about his, so I don't know. But don't stop at the what ifs. And not only in this situation, but life in general. I don't like to be a what if man, but let's be a trust God. And as you saw, we're blessed, and we're so grateful for what God has done. He saw it fit to bring the people to us, and we serve an amazing God who will work out the details. So again, we say, thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you. It was and still is a blessing.
Thank you, Wendell, Val, and Dad. Any questions before we close? Anything that you guys would like to try to get an answer to?
Does Rodney screen for Christian families, or how does he do as far as the religion?
That's actually a really interesting question. So Rodney actually brought up that there is Ukrainians called Ukrainian Baptists that look very similar to us. They wear their hair up, conservative, and there's a lot of those families that are coming. Also evangelical families and then non-Christian. So I guess you can decide what family you want to, what kind of family you want to sponsor. But he's not just like picking particular families. It's families that come to him, but a lot of them are Christian. Yes. Yep. All right, and then like I said, you can join the WhatsApp group and we can ask questions there. Yeah, so let's all stand to pray before we dismiss. Dear God, I thank you for this evening. I thank you for each one that came out tonight. I pray that you would bless each one of them as they decide whether or not they want to move forward with sponsoring a family. Please make it clear to them, and please bless them. as they decide on this. Please give everyone a safe trip home, and I pray a blessing upon the rest of our evening. In your name, amen. You are dismissed.